What's going on, people? This is the Baby Fathers podcast. One of the reasons why you can see I'm doing an extra episode and you don't see the other two here. Basically, we uploaded the last video. Goes by the name of "Is Court the Only Option?" Now, when I actually watched back at it, I did realize that there was some information missing, and we did have a lot of people hitting us up to ask us about the court situation and about what kind of legal advice can they get. So what we basically done on this episode, for anyone who wants to know about court procedures and about advice, what we've actually done on this episode, we're going to be talking to a lady called Natalie, which she is a lawyer. So we're going to speak to her to find out some information about how you go about court, all right? So hi, Nat. Actually, yeah, we've got Nat on the phone line as well, right? Just let everybody know she's not in the studio, but we do actually have her on the phone. So what's going on, Nat? How you doing, girl?
Hey, I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right.
Okay, so just let everybody know Natalie is a lawyer. So if anyone wants to get a pen and paper, do feel free, because we are going to talk about anyone who's actually having situations and problems of with the court. All right. So Nat, just tell a bit of people about yourself.
So I've been listening to the podcast for a while. It's very interesting and can be also very entertaining at times. I think it's really helpful and a good outlet for the guys to be able to get their point of views across, because obviously women are represented quite well a lot of the time, and we normally hear it from a lady's point of view. So it's good to hear the kind of real life stories coming from the men's side as well as to some of the stuff they go through.
Thank you.
In terms of about myself, yes, I'm a lawyer. I don't actually specialize in child protection or child contact cases, but it's something that I have come across in my career. So I'm able to give kind of some pointers. I mean, I would say that reading is your friend. I know a lot of people are kind of anti-reading, but there's so much information out there. And I think a stigma has been built up around the whole court process, and solicitors in general like to say we all charge extortionate amounts of money, etc., and it's going to cost you thousands of pounds. Sometimes it isn't that at all. Okay. And of course, there are some people that will charge quite a lot of money to do something quite simple. But it's down to common sense as well, in terms of you go where your pocket can reach. And I think if you do want to get something done, you're safe to do it. Just like if you want to purchase things, when you don't want to purchase your lots of Nikes and your PS5s, etc., you find money for that. So I think you can find money for what's important. Okay,
so going to, as I said, we have had so much people messaging wanting to know about the whole court procedures and how to go about it. So one of the questions I was going to start off with about asking you is, what is the process to go to court? Obviously, it's to see your child, all right? So what is the process to, what do you have to do to go to court to see your child?
Okay, so the process in terms of getting started and how to go to court should be the last option. Normally, by the time you're thinking about this, hopefully you will have exhausted all your other options in terms of trying to reach out to the other parent, and trying to, even if it's to other family members, to see if you can come to an agreement. What you would have to do now, because the law changed a few years ago, is you do have to try to go to mediation first. Okay. So it's called a MIAM meeting. So it's a mediation information and assessment meeting. It normally lasts for about an hour. It isn't free, but it's not necessarily that expensive. It can be free depending on the circumstances. So if you or the other parent are on low income or in receipt of certain benefits, you should be eligible to have the session for free. Okay. Now, this is a requirement. You have to have done this before you can actually apply to actually get court orders in place. Okay. There are some exceptions. So in some circumstances, if you need an urgent application to be heard, then you don't have to go to mediation. If there's issues with domestic abuse with your partner or ex-partner, then you don't have to go to mediation. And if there's concerns about the child's welfare and things like that. So there are some reasons where you don't have to go. They even consider if there's a centre that's not, I think it's within 15 miles of your home, but they do also encourage online. So that would be the first step. You should always try to do that. If the other person is refusing to go, because that's also a common situation where they say, well, she's just not going to say no, that's fine, because the mediator can give you a form to say you have tried to arrange it and have it done, and the other person's refusing, and then you can take the next step, which is making an application for a child arrangement order.
Let me just stop you there. So basically, if you're going to be going to the mediation, both parents has to be there, mum and dad.
Yeah. So you can do it together. There are instances when you can do them separately, but both of you at some point should have attended this meeting, whether it's online or face to face.
And when you go to the mediation, what kind of is the child there as well? Or is it just the mum and dad?
So the child isn't normally there. It would normally be the parent. I think it depends on the age. The child's very young. I guess they have no issue with you bringing them. But the main thing is a lot of parents lose sight of is it's about the child.
Yeah.
It's not about you two's feelings. So they don't want to create situations where it's going to be a hostile environment for the child, or a child would see a particular parent in a bad light, and cause them to suddenly develop bad feelings about that other parent.
And just to answer a quick question, when you go to this mediation, what exactly is it just a conversation to see if you lot can work it out without it going to court, or is it just to hear both sides of the story? Yeah,
so it's a way where the mediator will listen to both of you, and you can both air your grievances and see if there's any common ground, and they will see if there's a way that you can try and reach an agreement between you without having to go the court route.
Okay.
And a mediator can also listen and decide, do you know what, this isn't going to work. They're not going to see eye to eye on nothing. It needs to go to court for a judge to decide.
All right. And when they the mediation, the person who's actually sitting down doing the mediation, they're not here to take anyone's side, right? They're just there to hear both sides of the story.
Yes, so they're trained professionals. Lots of them are actually non-practicing solicitors, and they're completely independent. They have to be. Okay.
All right, and just going off, you see, if they want to go to court, how much would it cost to get the papers in motion?
So the court application is £215.
250 or 15?
15.
Okay, so it's £215. So obviously that's the first. That's just to put in the application for court, but it doesn't actually go straight to court. It goes to mediation first, right?
So before you can put that application in, you have to do the mediation. So the cost of mediation is not really fixed, but it varies, because the mediators are independent companies.
Yeah.
So they also have to be approved, but they're independent. So the fees that I've normally seen range between £95 to about £125 an hour.
Okay. So you have to pay for mediation for each time you go and see them.
Yes.
Okay, so
sometimes if it's all agreed the first hour, like the first time you go, then everybody's happy. You can get whatever arrangement you come to. You can get that formalized by way of a consent order, and you apply to court to have your consent order sealed, and that's what is a proper order approved by the court. Because what you get from mediation is not binding. You can't take that to court and enforce that. It has to then be made properly legal. So it may not necessarily get to that point, because it could be you make the agreement, everybody's happy, and everybody abides by what they're meant to be doing. Happy days.
Yeah. So.
But if not, there's other steps you can take.
So you have to pay between £95 to £120. You said, yeah. So that's not including. Yeah, and that's that's not including the court fee after the mediation. So there's two separate prices.
Yeah. So if it's not resolved at the mediation stage, and then you have to go to court, then you have to pay the £215 for the application.
So is that if the mum wants to be difficult and she still doesn't want to compromise, then they would turn around and say it can't work, then it has to go to court. Just on the mediation, how many times do they recommend for mediation to happen before it goes to court?
You have to go at least once.
Okay, at least once.
So it could be just one session, and from that session it's very clear that nothing will be agreed.
Okay.
And just they will say this isn't going to work for you. Just go to court.
And
then obviously it's up to you to go. If you can either give up and leave it at that stage, or you can apply. Okay,
and then once you apply, okay. So let me just look at this. So we're saying it costs between. So yeah, how much does it cost to go to court? You're telling me it's $215. Okay, so how long does it take before it takes to go to court if obviously the mediation doesn't works out? If the mediation don't work out and it has to go to court, what's the rough estimate time it takes to get there?
So once you put your application in, it's difficult to put an exact time frame on it, but you're looking at maybe, I'd say you should get your first hearing within about 2 months, but it can be 2 to 3 months. And then you've got situations where if you get a hearing date and either party decides they can't attend or they're unable to attend, that could get pushed back. So it's hard to say it will be definitely within this time. But you should normally have a date within about 2 months or so.
So in 2 months.
Yeah, after your application's gone in.
Okay. So once the application has gone in, it can take up to about 2 months. Is that for the response or for them to send you a court date?
That's normally for you to get a court date.
Okay, and then the court date can be between 2-3 months, and that's depending if everybody's free to attend to the to go to court.
Because you could get the date, and then she might, if the date's unsuitable for you or the other side, either party can apply to say they can't make it and have an alternative date, and they can give their dates when they're unavailable.
Yeah,
and ask the court to say for any date which they haven't given where they can't make it.
Okay, and just on the next thing, if you need, do you need a solicitor to go to court, or can you do it by yourself?
You can do it by yourself.
Okay, so if that's obviously if you're trying to cut costs, but would you recommend?
Yeah, so you can represent yourself. I mean, I think it depends on the person. There are some people who are unable to articulate themselves to the extent that they would be able to put their point across how they would like, so they may prefer to have somebody to represent them to do it for them. And some people are just not confident in doing it.
Yeah.
And they think they need the assistance, or they might be put off by the forms. So that's where they might want to have a solicitor to help them to do it. But it's not a necessity. You can do it by yourself. I think it's helpful to have some advice, even if you get advice along the way, because there may be certain things that you might not know that you should put in the form, or you should say at court, etc. Or there might be things that you want to go and say at court that you shouldn't. That could be damaging to your case.
Yeah.
So it would be helpful to have advice so that you know what to expect or what you should or shouldn't maybe be saying. And there are some firms that offer, say, a free consultation. So you can try and find, if cost is the issue, you can find a firm like that where you can at least go and have maybe an hour consultation with them for free. And you can cover quite a lot in that time. And that can at least give you some guidance, and then you can go off and do the rest by yourself.
And if you don't have if you don't have a job, if you have low income, can you get help with the solicitor's fees?
So I know you can get help with the court form.
Yeah.
In terms of there's a form you can fill out. If you're in receipt of certain income-based benefits, then you can normally have either pay no fee at all to get the form in, or have reduced costs. Like you might pay 50% of the fee. And in terms of continued representation, I must say the legal aid system has changed quite a lot. So the field that I'm in, we don't do any legal aid work, so I'm not particularly all favour of the rules. But there's normally always a duty solicitor available at court anyway.
Yeah.
So even if you got to court and you were able to go to see the on-hand duty solicitor, they're free and you could get advice.
Is that like a citizens advice bureau? Did they work on that kind of level or not?
Yeah, so they're normally based at the court.
Okay.
So they're not in an actual citizens advice bureau. They're in the court, but it's the duty solicitor that will be working for the day to assist people that are representing themselves.
Yeah.
And who may not know how the system works, or may just need general advice. They normally, if they're available, you're normally able to see them and they can assist you.
Okay. And when they assist you, is it just to tell you things before you go into the courtroom, or they would go in the courtroom and then represent you?
There have been some instances where I've seen them go into the rooms. They don't do too much representing, but most of the time is to give you advice before you go to the hearing, or at least to try to get the hearing adjourned, to say, do you know what, you actually need to go and get proper advice, even if you pay for an hour somewhere and then come back to continue with the hearing. And
how much would it cost for a solicitor if you wanted someone to represent you in court? What kind of figures is people looking from? Because I know you did mention about where your pocket can reach, and if some people's pocket can reach £100, can they actually get one?
I mean, I doubt £100 is going to get them anywhere, to be fair.
Okay.
Because each solicitor will normally charge an hourly rate.
Yeah.
Some of them will do it on a fixed fee. It really depends, because it's prices they can fix themselves. So it could be a situation where you find a firm and they might quote you £175 an hour plus the VAT. And then you could find another firm that might be charging $350 an hour plus VAT. So
it's good to shop around.
It's more, you'd have to just make inquiries and find someone that you think the fee's reasonable, that you can work with and afford. And you can always try to set up an arrangement with them where you say, I'm able to afford a maximum of 5 hours of work.
Yeah.
And you limit it to that. And they might say to you, okay, we've got to 4 hours now, you've got 1 hour left.
Okay.
and they need to decide what can be done. But I would reiterate, I don't think people should be put off by the fee. Solicitors are not crooks. That's the reputation we seem to have. We charge for the time spent, and a lot of the time people think, people seem to undervalue the amount of work that's done or that goes into it. They're like, oh, it's just that. How come it costs that much?
Yeah. So when we is there like a payment plan that people can do if they can't afford to pay it all up at once? Does solicitors do payment plans, or is it just straight the money up front?
Some firms will agree to do that. A lot of firms will like to have some money up front, because what you don't want to do is end up in a situation where you've done 3 hours of work for somebody. Say you charge £200 an hour, you've done £600 of work for someone, and they're saying, yeah, I'm going to pay. You've done all the work, help them get on their way, and then they just don't come back. You write to them, you call them, they're like, yeah, I'm going to pay, you just don't see them. That work's been done for free and you haven't been paid.
Yeah.
So normally they would normally ask for some money on account.
Okay.
So even if they agree a fee of 1,000, they might say, I need £500 up front.
Like a deposit. So like half up front.
To cover some of the work. So that at least if you disappeared, they got paid for something.
Yeah. And if the mum did not turn up to court, can anything happen to her? So if you see if there's a court date that's happened, because what it is, we've had people in experience previous where we've had people sending us emails and they've said that court does not work for them. The mum didn't turn up and the court didn't do nothing to them. So this is the reason I'm asking this question. So if the mum doesn't turn up to court, what can actually happen? Can anything actually happen to her?
Yes. I mean, it depends on the stage in the proceedings that you're at. If it's the first hearing, no, nothing. I'd be very surprised if anything happens to her.
Yeah.
So what would normally happen is the court would adjourn the matter and they would normally list it for another time. They might even do that twice if you don't turn up twice.
Yeah.
By the third time, the court's going to probably be saying, well, come on, the mum's taking the mick, and she clearly is trying to deliberately not to engage with the proceedings. So in that instance, they can't just do something to her just like that because there's no actual order in place. But what you can do is you can argue to have the case heard in her absence. So you can ask for whatever order you're asking for. You can present your evidence because there's nothing to defend it from the other person's side. Then you may be successful in getting an order. At least even if it's a temporary one, and then once the order's made, she would then have the opportunity to apply herself to have it changed or ask for a hearing so that she can come and present her evidence. So at least if you persevere with the proceedings, you should still get an order in her absence. So once you get the order in her absence, that then would need to be served on her so that she knows about it.
Yeah.
And then that depending on what the order says. The order might say you're entitled to see the child every other weekend, plus a day in a week or something. And if she's deliberately not allowing you to do that, then you can go for enforcement. Now, all the orders, I think since 2008, they come with a warning on them, which tells the person if you don't comply, you can be subject to things. So if she doesn't comply, you then have to go for enforcement. So you have to go back to court to tell the court, look, obviously I've got this order and the person is just not abiding by it.
Yeah.
So the things they can do to her, if she's not agreeing with the order, ultimately they can actually put her in jail. That's normally the last resort.
Okay.
So they can put her in jail for contempt of court because there's a court order they were deliberately not complying with.
Yeah.
They can fine her. They can also order her to do community service.
Okay.
So it's not, I know people say it doesn't work, I've got a piece of paper and nothing. You have to carry on to the next stage.
Yeah. And is that another price you have to pay?
You do have, yes.
Okay. And what's the, do you know the money on that if you had to
I don't know the fee off the top of my head, but there would be a fee to pay for enforcement, yes. Okay.
And can the solicitor do all this for you, or do you have to do that part yourself?
No, the solicitor can do it for you. So you can go back and say, look, this is what's happened. I've got the order. The person's not complying. What can I do?
Okay.
So they would normally say, okay, fine, let's go back to court and let's apply for enforcement.
Okay. And then
you normally start off with the harshest thing you can. So I would normally go and ask for imprisonment.
Yeah.
No.
So
you're not playing.
So you can choose what you want it to say, you want to happen to her.
You can ask for what you would like, and then the judge will decide what they think is appropriate. It depends on how serious the breach is.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone wants to send a mum to jail because their child still needs to be looked after.
Well, okay. Now, this is the other thing. Parents also need to educate themselves in terms of what rights they do and don't have.
Okay.
So both parents have parental responsibility normally. If you're on the child's birth certificate, I think it's from December 2003.
Yeah.
then dad have parental responsibility. Now, where there is no court order in place, what that means is you both have equal rights to the child.
Mm-hmm.
So normally what happens is the child by default ends up living with the mum, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's nothing stopping men taking on their children.
Yeah.
I do know a couple of people that have done that. And it's a shame that more men won't do it, but you find that men are just happy to leave the child with the mother.
Yeah.
Because see, what you said is, oh, well, they don't want the mum in jail because the child has to be looked after. But yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think you have to also...
Because it's inconvenient. That's why.
No, that's maybe true, but I think it's also as well, like, obviously the dad knows that he's obviously maybe asking for the weekend to see his child. Maybe there is some dads out there who wants full custody and doesn't even mind holding on to the child every day of the week. But we also have to still remember that it's not to do with mummy and daddy beefing. It's just about both parents trying to meet in the middle and make sure the child's happy regardless. That was one of the reasons why I said that. The dad can be spiteful and say, well, I'll send her jail. But at the end of the day, I do think that the child's still going to suffer. So it's just about trying to find what can scare the parent enough. And this also can be vice versa, because I know that there can maybe be some mothers who don't have their child.
Yeah.
And the dad's acting like a real D-head for the mum to see the child. And then she doesn't really know what direction to go. So it's vice versa as well. So maybe that's another way. If anyone who's listening to this or watching this, just also let you know that if there is mothers out there who don't have full custody of their child and the full custody is with the dad, this is also, you can do it the way also we're talking as well. So it's for both situations, fathers.
Yes, it's for both sides.
Yeah.
It's for both sides. But with the parental responsibility aspect, is just saying you both have the same set of rights to the child. No one actually has the right to say the child must live with them. Yeah. But by default, it always seems to end up that the child will live with the mum.
Yeah.
But as the dad, as long as you have parental responsibility, you have just as much right for the child to live with you. Where you don't agree where the child is going to live, then you would have to normally apply for a child arrangement order, and that is what we decide. The court can decide, well, the child will live here predominantly, and you can have contact, and it can stay with you, whether it's 2 or 3 nights a week, whatever. They can come up with whatever arrangement is suitable for the two of you.
Yeah, there
have been situations where a dad has had his child stay for a weekend and not brought the child back.
Okay.
And the mum's called the police, like, you have to, he's stolen my child, and the police can't do anything. As long as that parent has parental responsibility, technically, the mum has no right to force the dad to bring it back. Neither does the police, unless there's an issue of harm or something like that. Then they can get involved, like social services, etc.
Is there a certain amount of days before?
Nope.
So is it the dad can hold on to the child for how long?
Well, I'm not advocating for that to go.
But it can hold on to the child for a certain length of time before it has to bring it home.
No, not really a certain length of time until an order is put in place to say the child must live somewhere.
Okay.
Because if you can't agree between you where the child has to live, then you would apply for the court for the court to make the order to say the child must live here or there. Okay. But I don't. The information shouldn't be used to be spiteful, because I don't want it to be suddenly now all these dads or mums have gone and swiped the children and said, I'm not bringing it back.
Yeah. And then it's coming back on the baby father said that's what you could do.
Exactly. That's what you told us to go do.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, technically, you both have parental responsibility. And the other thing with parental responsibility, it's just slightly off topic, not really off topic, but to do with it.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to take your child abroad.
Okay.
Without the other parents' consent.
Yeah, I do.
So I know there's this thing about this 28 days. You can't take them for 28 days abroad. No. If there is a child arrangement order in place for you saying that the child can live with you, then you can take them abroad for up to 28 days without needing the other one's consent. But otherwise, if you just because the child lives with you, you technically don't have the right to take your child abroad without the other parents' consent, whether it's the mother or the father.
Okay.
And depending on where you're going, some countries do enforce that you can't leave the country.
Yeah.
Or they won't let you in. Like, I've had parents come to my office and they've had to sign, whether it's the dad signing to say the mum is allowed to take the child on holiday or vice versa. They've come to sign it because the country they go into will not let them in with the child unless they've got the proof that the other parent has said yes.
Just to quickly go turning off a bit of subject, because someone this has come up on one of our on the on part one. Someone asked if the mum doesn't want to put the dad's name on a birth certificate, is there any way the dad can get himself on that birth certificate?
So if it's not by agreement, I believe you would have to apply, because in order for you to have parental responsibility, you would have to have been married to her when the child she gives birth, or you're on the birth certificate. But normally it's something that, yes, she can go and register the child by herself. So if she tries to do that, you can apply to have yourself, to have you recognise that you are the dad with parental responsibility.
Okay. And then,
because the birth certificate is what gives you the parental responsibility automatically if you're on there. But if you are not on there for whatever reason, you can apply to court for parental responsibility.
Okay. So to that person who's obviously having that situation, that's your question answered. There's another question I was actually going to ask you. So this is to do with if the bit of subject, tiny bit again, but as obviously you're a solicitor or lawyer, it's kind of good to kind of answer these questions to answer what people's been kind of saying. So if the dad doesn't get to see his child, is he still eligible that he has to pay child support still?
Yeah.
And if he chose not to pay child support, what could be the outcome?
So the child maintenance service, the technically CSA is no longer around. If they change it to child maintenance service, they can, if you're working, they can take the money directly out of your wages. They can ask your employer to deduct the money, and they can also take the money out of your bank account. So I know it seems unfair, because I know a lot of people equate paying for the child to seeing the child.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the child still exists regardless, whether you're seeing the child or not. And as a parent, you have a financial duty to make sure the child is supported, whether you're seeing them or not.
Yeah.
So you can't withhold payment because you're not seeing the child. I mean, obviously you can, but there can be consequences. That is not a legitimate reason to withhold payment. The only reason to withhold payment is if you're proven to not be the father. Okay.
And if that as well, they do ask you, if they do get hold of you and they ask you if you're the father, and you turn around and tell them you're not too sure if the child is yours or not, then they do ask you to do a test.
Yes.
If I'm correct.
Yeah, so you do the DNA to prove, because obviously anybody can say, oh, it's nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Flipping right back to the court thing now. So if you don't win the case, if you do the whole mediation and you do go to court and you don't win the case, what is then the next step?
So in order for you to not be awarded any contact at all, I mean, I'm not aware of any situations where a dad who has parental responsibility and who's trying to get access is refused access for no reason. There would have to be a reason as to why. I mean, and if somebody knows or personally is in a situation where there's no reason, by all means, I stand to be corrected. Yeah. But I haven't come across a situation where a dad has been refused just for nothing. Because yes, a mother can make allegations. And I know back in the day, it was easier for a mum to do that, or even a dad to do that, to say that the other person is mental or unstable or this and, violent. Yeah. It was easier to do that back in the day. Now, if these types of allegations are made, you've got to come with support. It's not enough for a woman or a man to just say, oh, they're abusive or they're violent or they're this. There's got to be some kind of proof. So the court would normally look for, if you're saying it's domestic abuse, they'd normally ask you for records. So if have you reported it to the police, that type of situation, witnesses to come to say yes or no. They also look at, say, character references. So it's more to it than you wouldn't just not win the case to have contact just like that.
Yeah.
And there's other things that can be done as well. Even if you don't get immediate access where they say, okay, fine, you can just come freely and visit, they might say to you, they might give you supervised contact, so in a contact center. So I think it would be very rare for them to say no completely, because they would still normally allow you to have something, even indirect contact. They can allow you to contact the child by phone or by letter.
Yeah. Okay.
To start with, yeah. So I can't imagine a situation where you would just get told no completely. And there would normally be something behind that.
All right, that's calm. And just before you go there, I want to ask you one more question. If you do win the case and the mum still chooses to act it up, what then can then happen?
So that's when you go for enforcement.
So the enforcement will come into that again.
And you go for jail. Well,
okay. So that basically
Yeah,
there is ways of the mum cooperate. What's the word I'm trying to find?
yeah, I think yes, they're cooperating.
Yeah.
So there are ways to try and enforce the cooperation. Now, some people, obviously, you two were partners at some point. Most of the time, sometimes yes, it may have been a not so serious thing or a fling. You may not have known that person that well. But in the situations where you do know the person might know you and just say, I know that he or she is not going to take it that far.
Yeah.
So they might push it to the point where they know you're going to give up. And then they're like, okay, fine. They tried their little thing. They're not going to push it that far. We can just carry on living our lives and ignoring that person as if they don't exist.
Yeah.
But if you push it to where you need to push it to and you continue, you should be successful.
Okay.
And as I said, I stand to be corrected if there are people that have done it and they can honestly say that they got an order and that when the order wasn't being complied with, they then went for enforcement and that enforcement happened and nothing happened. Fine. But from the stories I've heard, no one has actually gone to the end. They've gone to a point and then they've given up. And then they turn around and say, "Oh, court doesn't work." Because I know plenty of people that have gone through the process and it works.
Yeah.
They are having access to the child. I know 2 people that actually went through the system and applied for a child arrangement order. Back then it was a residency order.
Yeah.
And they have full custody of the children. The children live with them, with the dad on a full-time basis.
Okay. So this basically just let people know that I know this is one of the reasons why I thought it was to do this episode because I thought it was very important. There's a lot of mixed messages where people are saying it doesn't work, some people saying it does work, and I thought we didn't on our last show we didn't actually give enough depth for the information that we was given. So I thought that we did need this episode here just to kind of break down for people who are maybe thinking of doing that whole court situation, and people who has gone through it and people who hasn't gone through it. And I just think that this was a good way of giving out the information. So anyone who has been watching or been listening, I do hope that you take this on board. You did say that they have to do some research to find a good solicitor, right?
Yeah, like with any product, remember, solicitors are people that are selling their products, selling their services to you. Some are going to be good, some are going to be not so good, some will be excellent, and some will be cheap, some not so cheap, some will be expensive. I think you just need to shop around, and also it's important to have a good relationship with your solicitor. You should be able to get on with them. Not you shouldn't feel like you can't express yourself to them or speak freely because it's not conducive to what you're trying to get out of them. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, Nat, I want to say a big thank you to you for
that's fine.
For you taking
I just want to add my disclaimer again. I'm not a child. I'm not like a family solicitor, but I have had some experience of it, and obviously colleagues and things.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if anyone has, if I've said anything that's incorrect, and people can stand to correct me, by all means, come with your evidence and facts. Yeah. I will take it on board. Yeah. But I'm just saying, this is a general kind of introduction in terms of the stuff that you can do.
Yeah.
And there's loads of information online. Even .gov.uk has a whole section that has got stages showing you like what you can do and what's available to you and the processes.
What we would do,
so there really are things there that you can use to help yourself.
What we would do, we would put that link in the description. On this video, so they can actually get access to that. Yeah, thank you. And so yeah, anyone who wants to visit that link, we're going to put it in the description, so you can click on it and you can then see what can work for you and just read up. And it's very important, as I say to people, that it is good to do your research. So the more knowledge you have and the more understanding, then you'll know what you need to be doing and what roads you need to be taking. And obviously, then you obviously have the knowledge. So, I just want to, once again, I want to thank Natalie. She's a solicitor lawyer, but she doesn't actually focus on this particular cases, but she does have some knowledge and understanding about it. I just want to say once again, thank you for jumping on the Baby Fathers to share some of the information. Yeah.
All right, take care.
Keep safe. All right, take care.
Okay. All right,
bye. So yeah, people, this is the Baby Fathers. I hope this has been helpful for you this evening. I've got my son over there looking at me because he wants to go to bed. Come here, man. Come and say yo to the people, them. Come and say yo quick. Say hello.
Hi.
This is my little. What should I call you? Little ninja. Yeah, it's my little ninja. Yeah, support the bad boy team too. Yeah, so this is bedtime. We're not getting ready for bed. But yeah, I just thought that we had to put this together to give a better understanding about the court situation, and I hope it helps everybody. I want to big up to my other co-hosts, my co-hosts Ricky and Gigi. Obviously don't see them here, but you know, I thought this one had to be done by watching the last episode. I thought, nah, this one has to come out after, just to educate people. But listen, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, and make sure you what's the word I'm looking? Like, share, subscribe, and yeah, man. Listen, keep safe, keep supporting their baby fathers. Listen, I need to go and do my father's duty now, innit? So we're gone in a bit.